Jarret Payton, CLTV in Chicago, son of the Hall of Famer Walter, and he joins us now. Jarret, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Dan. Thanks for having me.
How ugly is this season already in Chicago?
It's very ugly. I mean, Chicago fans, I think from the beginning of the season kind of didn't have that big expectations of what this team could do, especially with John Fox coming in with his new staff and knowing that there was going to be growing pains, but I don't think everybody expected it to be this bad. I mean, it's pretty bad and it's hard, especially in a town right now where baseball's taking over with the Cubs. I mean, you see the tide switching just a little bit. I know this is a Bears town, but people are talking about the Cubs more than the Bears, and since I've been born, that doesn't happen. There's no excitement. And I think that it's going to be a long time. The light at the end of the tunnel, I can't find it right now.
Who's getting the blame?
Well, in this city, it's always Jay Cutler, and I don't know. I don't know if it's fair. I think some of it's fair when you look at him, especially early on in the game before he got injured. I mean, he was 8 for 8 for 120 yards, 1 touchdown, and then, Dan, it kind of turns into that old Four Top song. It's the same old song with Jay Cutler. He kind of gives you this impression of showing he can use his feet to extend plays, make nice passes, show you the goodies, kind of like Sierra, and then he ends up throwing a pick that turns into a beautiful disaster like my favorite band, 311.
Wait. You just compared Jay Cutler to Sierra?
Well, I said he shows you the goodies, I mean, he shows you all the good things he can do. He can extend the play, throw the ball down the field, make the great passes, and you get excited for a little bit, but then you know that interception's coming, and then it all falls from there. And I think that's kind of going to be his legacy here in Chicago. He's a guy that he has all the talent in the world, and he could be the best quarterback that the Bears franchise has ever had, but to me, I don't know if he's that guy that can actually take you to the next level and to a Super Bowl. And before you even talk about Super Bowl, Bears fans in Chicago, you have to think about where you're at in the division. In NFC North, it all runs through the Green Bay Packers, and you have to figure out how to get yourself up that ladder. And right now, it's going to be the 3 to 4 year period for John Fox to get the guys that he wants in, and he can't miss in these drafts that are coming up. And it's really hard right now for Bears fans here in Chicago.
But you got a couple of good wide receivers. You got a great running back, and I mean, the Bears have more to start with than a lot of other teams that seem to squeeze out a few more wins than they do. And I don't put all of this on Cutler. I think he gets unfairly blamed, and I can't believe the hatred towards Jay Cutler. So the defense isn't very good. I mean, there's a lot of things to look at, point at. Now John Fox is in there. Who knows how long that'll last? But, you guys are headed for the number 1 pick in the draft the way things are going here, Jarret.
Yeah, which is not good. So I think a lot of the blame, Dan, has to go to the last regime when you look at Mark Trestman and Phil Emery of what they did, because now you have John Fox who comes in, who I think is probably the best thing that's happened to this organization in a long time, and a guy that has a resume of winning. It's going to take him time. What he has over a guy like Mark Trestman is he has that resume, so he's going to have time here in Chicago. I just think it's going to take time, and offensively, yeah, you have some of the weapons, but right now those weapons are sitting on the sideline. I mean, everybody was waiting for Kevin White to come in and see what he was going to do when Brandon Marshall was gone. He's injured, probably out for the year. And then you look at Alshon Jeffrey. This is a contract year. People want to see if this guy is a true number 1, and right now we can't even really talk about that because he hasn't been able to show what he can do now that Brandon Marshall's gone out of Chicago. This is his time to be able to show. And when you're talking about getting money, I would be very hesitant in just throwing out a bunch of cash to Alshon Jeffrey with not really seeing what he can do.
He's Jarret Payton of CLTV in Chicago. 30 years since the 85 Bears title. How old were you?
I was 5 years old, Dan.
Do you remember anything about that 85 Bears team?
I remember going to games, and I remember how focused my father was that season, and he was just so determined to win a championship. And I just remember talking with him after, as I got older, that he didn't want to leave the game not being a champion. And with all the things that he accomplished and how important that game was, and that season, this city was something I've never seen before. And I think some of the greatest things were that defense was so dominant, and offensively they could kind of play with the best of them. But that defense was what that team was built on, and it just goes to show. Look, 30 years later, that's still how you win championships, is by having a great defense.
I don't know if it was ever fair to your dad, but there was always the criticism that he didn't score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and he was upset. Refrigerator Perry got a touchdown, and Walter did not. Did you ever discuss that with your dad? I think Mike Ditka said he made a mistake and didn't give Walter the ball for a touchdown.
Yeah, I talk to Coach Ditka all the time. Every time I see him, Dan, he comes up to me and says, I'm sorry your dad didn't score that touchdown. I said, Coach, man, that's 30 years ago. It's all good. We're way past that. But I think for my dad, it really did kind of it hit him just a little bit. He was upset, but I think once he understood what it meant to win a championship, it was all kind of past, and that it was kind of part of his legacy. And now, Dan, everybody talks about my dad 30 years later and about that Super Bowl, and all they talk about is that play. And, since my dad's passed, it's pretty cool to kind of talk to people about some of those things, and that moment comes up all the time about him not scoring. But I think it's hard to think that you have one of the best players to ever play the game sitting on the sideline, and you don't give him the ball, especially at the time where he's going to jump over everybody in the end zone like he always did. Kind of hard, but Coach Dick, I still love you.
30 for 30 on the 85 Bears coming out. Have you heard anything about it?
No, I've heard some rumblings about certain things going on. I think it's pretty cool to see what this team was all about. Could you just imagine if that team had Twitter and social media back in the day? I mean, it would have been unbelievable. And they were worldwide without the internet, all over the world. So to see what this team was all about, to kind of dive in and look behind the scenes of what went on in that 85 season, is probably going to be special, not just for Bears fans, but football fans all around the country.
Always great to catch up with you, Jarret. Good luck with the career. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jarret Payton, CLTV in Chicago.